Welcome to the Carpet Cleaning Success Podcast. AI Marketing Experts is your backstage pass to the future of marketing. Hosted by a powerhouse crew of AI-savvy entrepreneurs, including John Clendenning, this weekly show unpacks the tools, trends, and real-world applications of artificial intelligence in digital marketing.
Welcome to the AI Marketing Experts Podcast. Thank you so much for joining in today. My name is Chris Hunter. I am the Chief Marketing Officer of River Marketing Heroes. I am joined here with a bunch of our friends. We meet here weekly to talk about AI and how it pertains to marketing and what's really going on in the whole AI world when it comes to all that stuff. Today's topic is going to be interesting because we're going to take it back a few steps, right? We've been geeking out and getting really deep into the weeds on all sorts of things. And while our world is getting more and more complicated, it seems like, right, with all of the AI tools that are coming out, and it's really hard to keep up with everything because every single one of the major platforms are constantly trying to one up themselves, right? Not only themselves, but everybody else. You know, as a great example, we're on an agents race right now with every single one of the major platforms. They're all trying to add this agent functionality to essentially take over any task that is dealing with a computer these days, right? So we're going to take it a few steps back though. Okay. And we're going to talk about some of the fundamental type things because we've heard a little bit from our audience that, hey, while knowing how to do Claude Code is cool, what about ChatGPT? How do I even use it? Right. So we're going to talk about how to get good outputs today. We're going to talk about how to not get hallucinations. We're going to also dig into some privacy and safety fundamentals that you need to be aware of, right, with pretty much all the platforms out there. All right. So let's go ahead and start off here. Brad, you were talking earlier today or before we jumped on here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how do we get a good output from ChatGPT? ChatGPT is the biggest one out there. So let's focus on that one for now.
Sure. Nice to see you all. Or as Chris would say, y'all. I lived in Texas back 40 years ago, and it was like a different language when I first moved there because I was a California kid, but that's a whole nother story. So, I'm seeing some shifts when it comes to getting good outputs, essentially because, even in recent times, it's like, okay, you really need to have a good prompt. You need to be a prompt engineer, so to speak. And I think that might be shifting some because I think that the AI models, the LLMs, are getting a little bit smarter, meaning you maybe don't have to have the most amazing prompt in the world to get good output. However, I think it still helps. I think I've shared before on here, we use a prompt tool that's very inexpensive called Pretty Prompt. And so I can put something in there very simple, create an image of such and such and make it look blue and green, very simple. But then when I use this prompt tool, it will then really refine that to let the AI model know at a much higher level what it should be creating. Because what can happen if you're just using a basic prompt, and you're not really as familiar with some of the tools, then you can get some not so great results. You may be spinning and wasting time and trying it over and over. So that's one of the first things that comes to mind is at least get a decent prompt in there when it comes to your output. I don't know that I'll jump right into the whole security side of things, but also be aware that if let's say you're creating some written content or something more in depth, you got to proofread what it produces because there is a term used in the AI world called hallucinating, and the robots, so to speak, will do that periodically. Meaning you may just take a cursory glance at what it produced and say, oh man, that looks good. And the next thing you know, you've published that or whatever, and you have somebody else look at it and go, oh, wow, that's really goofed up. You missed that part. So you definitely proofread what it produces, especially if it's, longer content. I know that a lot of times we'll put together 2,500 word blog posts, and just makes sense to review it, because whether you had a human writer or you had an AI writer, your common sense would say you need to proof that, review it, make sure it makes sense, make sure that it's legitimately talking about what you're trying to say. Sometimes in prompts, what we'll do is say, don't include case studies, don't include prices. Give it some guardrails, give it some feedback of what you don't want it to do. That sometimes can save time.
100%. I think that and that brings up a good point of always checking the work, right? And what I talk about a lot with anyone that I talk with, AI, is treat it like a new employee into your organization. They don't know anything about your organization. They don't know how to do the actual job, right? And yes, AI has gotten a heck of a lot smarter, but you still need to check the outputs on everything, right? And it's not just for content. We're talking everything across the board, right? What do you think, Jen?
Yeah, specifically around this issue, we always put content through another fact checker prompt. So yes, we also have a human in the loop, but in addition to that, we want to make sure that not only are we using AI as a fact checker, to make sure that there isn't hallucinating, but to make sure that if we are including some sort of facts that we're saying, do we have a link to where this was? Like if it says, a study shows, okay, give us a link to that study. And we also have to check to make sure that that link is actually valid, because sometimes, at least it used to do this, we, have the guardrails in now, but it would include links to studies that it was a broken link. And so that does us no good. So using AI to check it in multiple ways like that, I think is really helpful. And then also, in addition to fact checking in general, if we're writing content for a client, then we also want to tell the AI, fact check it based on what is already available on the client's website. That way, like if it's saying something that is just out of alignment, like yes, we have like the custom GPTs and the brand and all of that, but we also want to make sure that it doesn't contradict anything that's already on the website. And so if it does, it will, flag it for, again, to bring the human into the loop to check that.
100%. And so that brings up a good point, on hallucinations. And that's kind of on our topic here, is how do we ensure that the outputs that we're getting isn't hallucinations? John, why don't you weigh in on that one?
Yeah, so I think what we're wrapping this all around is, and Brad mentioned it well, and then Jen dove right into it. Prompt engineering isn't as important anymore. You and I, Chris, both know that when you start working with an agent, you don't do any prompt engineering. You just have a conversation. It figures out the prompt, and then it goes and does a task because it has a skill. So we've just added a whole bunch of little things right here and there, but skills are basically like custom GPTs back in the day. Skills are transferable. They don't just have to be on Claude. You can take a skill to any one of the LLMs. A skill is a set of instructions that tell you how to do something. So what I kind of want to put that into bubble is, if you've got what I call a chat in the wild, this is how I explain it to my team. If you just go into ChatGPT, whether you're on the, and you're on the paid or you're not on the paid plan, then you can't have projects. So you're just walking in and starting a chat, and you just start the chat up. It is rogue. It is like, I know everything. I know too much. You didn't give me anything. If you start with, as Jen said, say you've got an entire Google Doc on the client's voice, the client's this, the client's that, you drop that in, right, as a reference context. Then you drop in how you want blog posts to be written, with a summary at the top and key features, and then the rest of the post, and you want all the instructions like that. Then you say, hey, based on my 2 control documents here, here's some new information. Can you write me a blog post? Ask me any questions before getting started, blah blah blah. Right now, you've got this. You've given it context, you've given it control. And then your output is going to be a lot more based on that. Now that gets into the world. If you've got a project, projects are just an isolated bucket. You can put those instructions at the top of a project and have conversations forever, have individual chats that are only inside that project, so that project has a knowledge base that it always draws back against. And now you've made that a little bit easier. So it's worth $20 a month, just for your ChatGPT or whatever. So I think those are a couple things. And then if you're ever having I know Laura was going to touch on, we're talking a little bit about, a lot of people don't know how insecure these LLMs are. Everything you type in there is public unless you either go into the private mode. There's an option in ChatGPT in the top corner where it's temporary mode, where nothing is shared, that kind of thing. You can set your privacy settings. They've added two-factor authentication, just like you should be doing on Facebook, because people can get into your Facebook account and then, and go rogue and steal all your stuff. People can get into your ChatGPT too, if they figure out your username and password on stuff like that. So you should have the two-factor authentication now, which wasn't there 2 months ago, but it's there now in the back end, and they're recommending everybody set that up. So think of your privacy, think of context, when you're doing stuff, and you'll get much better output, and you can kind of control your environment a little bit better.
I think that's well said, that all of us, no matter what, need to take time to look at our settings and see what's currently in there, what they have updated, what is included and what's not included. I know one of the key things that we like to mention is, if you're not going to email it out to the world, don't copy and paste it in there. So you do want to think about what you're putting there, because it does start to seem very intimate, and you've got this private conversation going on with your computer or your phone, and you don't think, oh, it's not going to go anywhere. But that's the thing, is depending on your settings, it could be training other LLMs or the AIs using it for other fashions. So definitely take the time to check those settings and see what you want out there and what you want them to be. So the other thing too is you can sanitize your inputs. So what we mean by that is maybe be a little bit vague. Don't talk in specifics. So if I'll just use a tractor as an instance. So you don't have to put everything specific of your serial number and everything about your tractor to find out information. You can go ahead and be vague and just state the year of the tractor, some basic things. And once that's in there, then you can decide what to do with it. So think about being a little bit vague once in a while and not be so specific.
Don't tell it your social insurance number.
No, definitely don't want to do that.
That's exactly right. Don't do it.
Yes.
And I know that there are some settings in general that you can adjust in the different LLMs. Do any of you recall exactly some of those settings that you would want to keep, where basically you're saying don't use my information to train the model? You guys remember any of that?
Yeah. Go through your settings. It's in there. You think there's ChatGPT has the whole security section, so you want to go there as well, and double check sort of your setup and your security and stuff like that. But just pop through the because they keep adding more layers to it. But just make sure that things like memory and training and stuff like that. I know Gemini has really harsh setting or really good settings on, do you want this to be used anywhere else at all? Kind of idea, and asks you really straight up. The other ones are a little bit harder to find or a little bit, more nuanced. But yeah, they all have an ability to hit a temporary chat that is completely off the beaten path and will not do anything if it's going to be that private.
Yep.
Always a good thing. Always a good thing. Back to what we're talking about, the facts and stuff. One other thing that we also like to do is ask it to flag assumptions, because again, AI likes to be very pleasing, likes to provide you all of this great information. But if you ask it to flag any assumptions, that is helpful. Also asking one or two qualifying questions after what, like clarifying questions, not so much qualifying, but clarifying questions is also a way to kind of cross-reference what it is putting in front of you. And again, to everybody's point so far today is human in the loop. Remember, there was only a few years ago, we did not have this type of assistance. And we were very capable of writing phenomenal blogs with our team members. So keep ourselves in the loop to verify, make sure we are signing off on whatever might be put out. And to Jen's point, definitely click on the links, because it does just like to throw in those pretty blue underlined links, and we take it for granted that those are valuable assets, and you can find a lot of dead links within it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, we don't actually we don't click on the links at that point. We tell AI to check the links, and then we do eventually, but at first we just we're sure that we're prompting the LLM to check those links after they've added, or it has added. So
good point.
One custom instruction that I learned recently. So inside your settings under the personalization in chat, I'm trying to remember where it is in Claude right now, but you should set how you want it to talk to you. Do you want it to be conversational, talkative, light, humorous? With mine, call me hey dude or hey JC, and instead of being all that kind of, instead of being formal. But one of the things that you should set once that I did a long time ago, and I just found it on my phone here, putting in the bottom of those custom instructions, prioritize substance over compliments. Never soften criticism. If an idea has holes, say so directly. This won't scale because of X. It is better than have you considered. Challenge assumptions, point out errors. Useful feedback matters more than comfortable feedback. If you tell it that, and that's the wording that this one fellow gave, then you're not going to constantly get, again, do you want the ego stroke? Okay, you're great. I'll tell you, you're great right now. So now you got it. Write it down. You don't need ChatGPT to always tell you that you're great. If your idea sucks, actually have it push back a little bit and go, well, maybe that's not a good idea, kind of idea. So, because it does default to be, your most agreeable friend. And sometimes that agreeable friend that agrees with everything gets a little annoying.
Well, I think that we brought up a lot of valid points there, and that just kind of wraps everything up. Does anyone have anything else to kind of add on to everything that we just talked about?
Check your work, Don't, it's like what was shared earlier, an AI assistant or an AI tool is just that. It's just like if somebody to work for you, you still want to look at what they produce, because nobody's perfect and things can go goofy sometimes. So I think that'd be the tip of the day is check your work and don't just trust that it's always going to be right.
Yeah. And check the privacy settings of your account. Check it.
Yep.
Make sure that you know where you stand, whether that means that you upgrade to a paid account or you're fine where you're at, whatever it is, but check the settings and make sure you know where you stand.
Yep.
Yeah, especially today with all the agents coming out. OpenClaw, you don't have to be into that, but like Chris was chatting to me about the Perplexity computer, as they call it, which is their workflow. Claude Cowork, they're all the agentic race is on. We'll have an episode about that soon. But they're all doing that, and that is rogue like crazy if you don't know what you're doing. Like that's go in and answer emails and move things around and do all that kind of stuff. You better kind of know the basics we talked about here today before you ever just decide to say, yeah, just go do it. I'm going for lunch, and come back to whatever happened while you were gone. So
yeah.
That comes back to a strong foundation, but like you said, we'll visit on that because if you're unorganized now, it just amplifies that you're unorganized.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, y'all. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is AI Marketing Experts Podcast. Be sure to hit like and subscribe down below. Make sure you tune in every week because we are bringing it with all sorts of cool stuff that we're talking about. Yes, we did go back and go some foundational type stuff today, but we're always talking about the newest, latest, and greatest and all that kind of stuff in the AI and marketing world. So with that being said, thanks for joining us and have a great week, y'all.